Angel Reese says WNBA players could go on strike over salary and benefits.
Career you choose, you should probably look at what the career earnings are.
In a moment that has sparked widespread debate, professional basketball player Angel Reese ignited a firestorm of discussion by suggesting that if WNBA players are not compensated fairly, they might consider taking drastic measures, potentially even striking. In a tone that mixed passion with provocation, Reese warned that the future of the league could hinge on the continued brilliance of standout players, notably Caitlin Clark. According to her, if the league fails to provide the proper salary and benefits, the players might simply walk off the court. This remark has not only set social media ablaze, but has also drawn pointed criticism from voices within the sports community. One of the most scathing responses came from Patrick Bet-David.
Going into that field, what I'll also say is this: every single one of you WNBA players, you better pray that Caitlin Clark doesn't get injured, because she's keeping your...
Whose detailed dissection of the financial realities facing the WNBA has forced fans and pundits alike to re-examine the league's economic structure. In what some have called nothing short of a masterclass in financial argumentation, Bet-David laid out a series of facts and figures that challenge the feasibility of Reese's bold demands. Let's take a closer look at the nuances of this unfolding debate. Angel Reese, now a professional in a league that has long struggled with financial sustainability, laid bare her frustrations about her own compensation. In her public statements, she highlighted that her annual rookie salary of approximately $74,000 was barely enough to cover basic living expenses. The shock factor in her comments came from her suggestion that if the league continues to underpay its players, they might decide to strike. Reese's argument was simple yet incendiary. If the league doesn't deliver the kind of pay and benefits that reflect a player's true value, then the players have every right to withhold their talents from the court.
They'll be on the rookie contract again. The ones that the year after, they gonna get more. They probably gonna be making more than us.
No, they
Who's
are.
that?
I'm hurt.
They are. Like, yeah.
She specifically mentioned the looming threat that the league's fortunes might depend on the health and performance of star players like Caitlin Clark. In her view, if Clark were to suffer an injury, it would not only impact the team's performance, but could also signal the collapse of an already financially fragile enterprise. In a league where many players sign contracts that leave them on the financial fringe, Reese's comments resonated with a broader sentiment of frustration. Yet her stance also came across as somewhat paradoxical. While calling for better pay and conditions, she simultaneously suggested that the league's survival depended on the performance of players who are still learning the nuances of professional play. Critics have argued that her message, though passionate, carries a tone of entitlement that seems disconnected from the harsh economic realities that the league endures. To understand the full context of the dispute, it's crucial to dive into the financial figures and the business model that underpins the WNBA. Angel Reese's revelation about her salary has become a focal point for discussions on economic parity. Despite her numerous endorsement deals, a portfolio that once netted her nearly $8 million during her college years, the transition to the professional stage has left her on a starkly different financial footing.
I've been in the meetings. They are. I need to get in the. I need to get in the field.
You need to come to the meeting.
I gotta get in the meetings because I'm hearing like, yeah, they don't give us. If y'all don't give us what we want, like, we sit out.
Her rookie contract, valued at roughly $324,000 over 4 years, translates to an annual salary that is dramatically lower than her previous earnings. Reese bluntly remarked that her professional pay doesn't even cover the rent in Chicago, a statement that underscores the ongoing struggle for financial sustainability in the league. However, as many analysts point out, the economics of the WNBA are far more complex. The league operates on a revenue structure that is drastically different from that of its male counterpart, the NBA. While the NBA enjoys an enormous revenue stream and shares roughly 50% of its earnings with players, the WNBA's revenue is not only significantly smaller, but is also chronic in its losses. Last season, the WNBA generated around $200 million in revenue, yet an overwhelming majority of that money, approximately 3%, was funneled directly into player salaries. This leaves a minuscule margin for covering the league's operating costs, let alone for reinvesting in the growth of the sport. Patrick Bet-David's counter-argument brought these facts to the forefront. He argued that expecting dramatic salary increases or improved benefits in a league that consistently operates at a loss is unrealistic. Using comparisons to other major sports leagues, the NFL, NBA, and MLB, all of which have enjoyed massive profits, he highlighted the stark differences in scale. For instance, while the NFL brings in around $117 billion, the NBA and MLB generate over $11 billion each, and even the NHL is not far behind at $7 billion. The WNBA, by comparison, struggles with annual revenue figures in the vicinity of $150 million.
I love watching her highlights of missing shots. She's got to be the worst shooter you've met in your life. But go, Rob, just go.
Great
give us
rebound
feedback.
Yet, despite these impressive numbers, the underlying financial model of the WNBA remains unchanged. The league continues to operate on slim margins, with very little room for error. This has led some to argue that while the league can certainly celebrate the successes brought on by players like Clark, it must also address its systemic issues. As the numbers show, even with record-breaking attendance and growing viewership, the WNBA is still not operating as a profitable enterprise. The contrast between the league's increasing popularity and its persistent financial losses is a central point of contention in the ongoing debate. Angel Reese's suggestion that players might strike if their demands for higher pay are not met introduces a complex layer to the discussion. Strikes in professional sports have historically been tools for negotiation, a way for players to leverage their collective power in the face of financial mismanagement. Major leagues such as the MLB, NBA, and NFL have all experienced strikes at one time or another, each leading to various degrees of change in salary structures and working conditions. However, the key difference is that these leagues are backed by deep pockets and consistent profit margins, which makes the threat of a strike a viable bargaining chip. In contrast, the WNBA's precarious financial situation means that a strike could have catastrophic consequences. If the players were to collectively refuse to play, it would not only disrupt the league's operations, but might also precipitate further financial losses. In a situation where the league is already operating at a loss, any interruption in play would likely exacerbate these challenges, potentially endangering the very existence of the league. This is the heart of Patrick Bet-David's argument. If you're asking for more money from an enterprise that is bleeding cash, you have to first address the fundamental issue of profitability.
A possibility. Reese has been vocal about her low WNBA salary, revealing her $74,000 a year salary doesn't cover rent, stating on Instagram Live, "I just hope you know that the WNBA doesn't pay my..."
Moreover, Bet-David's analysis reminds us that when a business is in financial trouble, the solution is not simply to demand a larger share of its limited resources. Instead, the focus should be on turning the business around, improving efficiency, boosting revenue streams, and ultimately moving towards profitability. Without this fundamental change, any talk of increased salaries becomes a non-starter. The analogy is stark. Demanding raises from a sinking ship is not only unrealistic, but also potentially disastrous for everyone involved. To fully appreciate the scale of the challenge, it's important to understand the unique business model of the WNBA. Unlike the NBA, which enjoys a vast and growing ecosystem of revenue from TV contracts, sponsorship deals, and global merchandising, the WNBA has long operated as a cost center rather than a profit center. Financial support from the NBA has been a lifeline, allowing the league to exist despite its continuous losses. This support is crucial because, despite its cultural significance and the passion of its fans, the WNBA has never reached a point where its revenues exceed its operating costs. Critics of the call for higher salaries argue that until the league can turn a profit, demands for significant raises or improved benefits are not only unrealistic, but could also undermine the long-term viability of the sport. The numbers are stark. The league's losses have been well documented, with annual deficits reaching as high as $40 million in recent years.
This financial struggle stemmed from WNBA salary not matching her past earnings, as her NIL valuation at LSU was $1.8 million, bolstered by deals with Reebok, PlayStation, McDonald's, and Coach. While
in contrast, the NBA's financial machine churns out billions in revenue, enabling it to invest heavily in its players and infrastructure. The disparity between these two leagues is not just a matter of dollars and cents. It reflects a fundamental difference in scale and sustainability. For the WNBA, the path to financial stability involves more than just increasing ticket sales or growing viewership numbers. It requires a comprehensive strategy that addresses the underlying economic challenges. This might include expanding the number of teams and games, diversifying revenue streams, and forging deeper partnerships with sponsors and broadcasters. Until these measures are fully realized, the league's financial future remains uncertain, and the argument for significant salary increases remains at best aspirational.
sustain her, especially since the WNBA's $200 million revenue last season only allocated 9.3% to salaries, unlike the NBA's 50% share of the $5.3 billion in 2023. Adam.
One of the more ironic aspects of this debate is the contrast between the financial opportunities available to players off the court versus what they earn from their professional contracts. Angel Reese herself is a prime example of this paradox. During her time in college, Reese was a highly marketable athlete who secured lucrative endorsement deals with major brands such as Reebok, PlayStation, McDonald's, and Coach. These deals collectively brought in earnings that dwarfed her current professional salary.